Good afternoon. It's a long overdue update from Core Assets. Symbol is CC on the CSE. I'm with the CEO. His name is Nick Rodway. Nick, how are you?
Doing great, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. I voted here in the U.S.
Yeah,
I made my vote count, and I'm happy to be speaking to you across the world. I hear you guys are pounding the pavement. The Core Assets team is in Asia to go to some conferences and see some investors.
yeah. We're traveling, east of Vancouver, and where I'm from on the east coast of Canada, and we're headed to a conference in Australia, and we're going to hit up a few different places on the way.
Fantastic. That's always good to hear as a shareholder. I like to hear the company is trying to meet new investors and share the story far and wide. Um, it's been a while. I think the last time we spoke was in June at the start of the drill program. So why don't we just start high level for people that don't know Core?
Sure.
Can you tell us about the company's project portfolio and what makes it special?
Yeah, certainly. So we listed the company back in 2019, early 2019, and it was all based around a copper idea up in Atwin, BC. And fast forward, another year, we kept making brand new discoveries due to the receding glaciers in the area. And we ended up staking a contiguous land package, which is one of the biggest ones in BC. And it's over 1,200 square kilometers, and it borders Alaska, and it almost goes all the way up to Yukon on the southwest end of Atlin Lake. Atlin is known for gold mining, placer gold mining from the Klondike Gold Rush till now. So it dates back to 1890s. So a lot of history there. It is a mining town. So this project, just like a company would have a project in Nevada, one in Ontario, one maybe overseas. We have one extremely large land package, and in that land package, we have several different projects that are all connected. And the beauty of that is in BC, you can do work on one license and you can carry those costs over on other licenses. So it allows you to maintain these claims for many, many years if you are doing, work and spending money like we are. So the original project that started the whole thing was called the Laverdiere project. So that is a porphyry skarn project with high grade skarn at surface. And we did drill maybe, I think it was around 2,000 meters there, 1,800 meters in 2021. And we got some really great results. Actually, we did hit a potassic zone of chalcopyrite bearing porphyry. And we had some very high grade skarn. And just like two of the intercepts we had there, I think we had just over 100 meters of 0.54% copper equivalent. And within that, there was 48 meters of over a percent copper equivalent. So those were really great results. We then moved on to our flagship project, which is a silver lime project. That was a brand new discovery made by the Core Assets team, and it encumbers an area of about 9 by 9 square kilometers. And there is more massive sulfide up on that property than I've probably seen cumulatively in my life at every project I've ever been to. Like it's crazy how much is at surface. So that obviously made us interested in going ahead and spending most of our money there. So the last 2 years have been focused mainly on silver lime. And then in addition to that, we have another project called the Kim project, and that's about 20 kilometers north of the silver lime project. Again, so much distance between these different targets, but same beds of carbonate that are associated with the silver lime and the Kim project. But we channel sampled it in a short program, and we had over 19 meters of a percent copper and almost 100 grams silver. So we're producing grade at surface everywhere on the project. And now we know that we can produce grade also in the subsurface.
Yeah, when I first took a look at Core in 2023, it just struck me how high some of the silver, lead, zinc grades are. And I loved your maps with all these, big anomalies across, the project package and just the size of the property that you guys staked. Great location, smoke everywhere, and I mean, just high grade at surface. You guys have, so many different spots on the project where you have really high grade, like you said, just sulfides, just massive sulfides all over the place. There's a lot of sulfides. There were a lot of, hydrothermal events that occurred here a long time ago, and drove up a lot of metals closer to the surface of the earth. So, for those who don't know core well, uh, I recall in Vancouver in May, you guys showed me some core from a drill that from a hole that you guys drilled. Was it a year or two ago? And it blew me away. Uh, can you tell us about some of the big hits that you guys have had?
Yeah, we certainly can. So again, there was no drill holes ever on the project, on the Silver Line project, until we went in. And our first drill pad was at what we call the Jackie target. And our first hole on that pad intersected over 20 meters of continuous massive sulfide. And we had some really, really good grade on that, including, over 100 gram per ton silver over certain intervals of that hole. The specific hole you're talking about that I showed you was from the Grizzly area, which is probably about 2.7 kilometers west, just over into the next valley from the Jackie area. So that is, we found stuff that looked like that at surface in kind of float boulders at the bottom of hills and stuff, but you can't actually see that intercept. You can't see it at surface. It's something that we discovered at depth, and you never would have known it was there unless you drilled through the marble unit. But that was just over a 5 meter intercept, I think 5.6 meters, and it registered a quarter of a kilogram silver. I believe it was just over 10% zinc lead. And we also had a gold credit in there and a 0.5% copper credit. So that stuff is, some of the most beautiful textures that we have is in that piece of core. And that's, what we're calling, the carbonate replacement, specific and different from skarn, and again in our geological books. And it's just pure sulfide with extreme high grade. There's 1.5 meters in there of over a kilogram per ton silver. This stuff is dense, and it's, chiefly galena and sphalerite, which is carrying your zinc, your lead, and also your silver is tied up with the argentiferous galena that's in this sample. But that's the stuff that I showed you, and I did notice actually the other day I was looking at I-80 Gold's LinkedIn post, and they actually have a piece of core that looks identical to ours, and we've looked at that in person as well. And that key texture is the one that produces grade. So that was the one that we looked at, you and I, that day.
So, it's not very common for a project to have silver, lead, zinc, copper, and gold in large quantities. And that's what you guys have here, at the, Sulphide City, at Whaleback, at Pete's. You got all these hits that have silver, lead, zinc, copper, and gold. And the hole that you just talked about, basically the silver grades at today's prices, that's over $300 per ton of rock, just the silver grades, in that rock. And then you put in the 10% lead zinc. What is that? That's another couple $100 or $300 there. You get a little copper, you get some gold. And some of your gold grades are actually pretty good in some of these holes that you guys have drilled. I mean, the gold grades are up to a gram in some areas, on top of the silver, on top of the 10% lead zinc, and on top of the 0.1 or 0.2% copper. What is the interpretation here? Porphyry, skarn, what is it? Is it just you got a lot of everything going on?
Yeah, I mean it's very valuable rock, right? And I mean it's not really that uncommon. I wouldn't say. I mean, VMS deposits also have a wide range of, polymetallic, 5 different elements, and VMSs are known for having a smaller tonnage, and they are known for being very valuable though because it's so densely populated, and it's very valuable rock. What we're looking at here is definitely a porphyry system, so some sort of heat source intrusion that's coming up from some specific depth. and it is shooting off fluids into different types of rocks. Some rocks are reactive, some are non-reactive. When you hit with an acid, if you have an acid, which is your ore fluid, so your zinc, lead, silver, if that's hitting a base would be your carbonate unit, so a marble or a limestone, same thing as vinegar and baking soda. It will travel through and replace everything in its path until it runs out of steam. So those very high grade massive sulfide things that we're seeing are in a carbonate unit, and it's due to replacement. The further you step out, you're going to get larger quantities of silver. As you get closer in, your silver starts to drop out a little more. It's still there. And again, when we're taught, it's relative sense, right? You know, silver can be over a kilogram per ton a kilometer away. And then when you get right in on top of it, you're still getting a half ounce, you know, so it's still there. It's still helping your metals budget. But as you move back in, you're generally your zinc is going to pick up a little more, and then your copper. So whaleback would represent what we think is semi-proximal, you know, and again, relative sense, proximal to the source. And then the grizzly area, after this has been folded and everything else, a lot of metamorphism happening up in the area as well, a lot of deformation, a lot of complexity. Complexity is another key to upping that metals budget. So grizzly would represent a more distal area.
Okay. So in 2024, you guys were mainly focused on Sulphide City porphyry target, but you also had a few other targets, including Pike Valley and Whaleback that you just spoke about. Can you walk us through, you know, the program that you guys just got done in September? I think it was around 10 holes.
Yeah, so previous to this year, so in 2023, our idea was, again, following a hub and spoke model. We're trying to increase the distance between drill pads and show the scale of this thing. So that was why we drilled, you know, the Pete's area where we had, you know, over 5 ounce per ton silver. I believe it was 10 or more percent zinc, lead, 0.5% copper over, I think that one was 6.4 meters, you know, one of our more valuable ones as well. And then we had Galley, which was along the same trend that you can actually see if you stand on the side of the hill. You can see this in outcrop going all the way down with massive sulfide. And at that Galley area, we had about, I think it was 8 meters there of maybe 150 gram per ton silver. Within that, again, we had another half meter or meter of 1,000 gram per ton silver. So we kind of demonstrated that there was a 2 kilometer at minimum corridor of actual visual sulfide. And you can see from end to end, if you pick up the rocks as you move in, the mineralogy changes as you go in. So that leads us then into bringing into this year what we did. So our plan this year was to drill some deeper holes to see the extent of what is actually feeding all this mineralization at source. And then in addition to that, we wanted to test our, again, most proximal skarn, which was called the whaleback. And that was discovered in one of our very first recon missions back in 2020. So that was a very exciting day to walk upon, you know, something like that. Not many geologists get to, you know, find it or make a new min file, I guess, in BC. It's pretty spectacular day to walk upon something, you know, as big as that at surface. And, you know, you're wondering, like, how has this never been documented, right?
How
But then
big is it, the skarn outcrop?
so that the skarn intermittently comes up for over 2 kilometers, and you can see it. But the
Wow.
whaleback itself is continuous at surface for about 150, 200 meters. You can see that surface. So we drilled 3 holes there, and one hole in specific, which we did put out some news on the visuals. The headliner was 11.8 meters of massive sulfide. That would be mainly sphalerite being your first most abundant mineral. And again, this is all from my visual observations, followed by pyrite, pyrrhotite. There's chalcopyrite in it as well, and there's also some galena, right? So that tells us that we think, just because of the sphalerite, the zinc content, we think that it's, you know, more proximal to the source. So that was our second hole, I believe. Our first hole was around 800 meters depth, and that hole was targeting a chargeability anomaly that's underneath Sulphide City that came from our IP survey that we did at the end of last summer. And we got down to about 600 meters, I believe, and we hit many massive sulfide intercepts within that as well. And again, same sort of genre as whaleback, but again, I think we're getting a little more proximal. as we drill down. So I think there's going to be some really, really good thick massive sulphide skarn intervals in that hole as well. And then we briefly moved down to galley area just so we could, log the core and properly know what that hole hit. After we went down to the galley area, we came back to Sulphide City and came down from a different angle. And again, we hit multiple layers of this skarn, massive metal in the ground as well. Zinc, chalcopyrite, or sphalerite, chalcopyrite, so zinc and copper minerals. And again, we're pending assays here now. News is imminent on everything I'm talking about here. Will be out very, very shortly. And yeah, I mean, we're definitely expecting some great results from the massive sulphide, and then hopefully some surprises from places like Pike Valley, which was discovered just last year by one of our field members. And that is a intrusive rock that has, centimeter scale stockwork veining coming up in a quartz carbonate, and it's just chocked full of massive sulphide again. So the same type of sulphide you're seeing at Pete's and Galley and all these different places, but in a completely different rock. So it's a brand new spot. We did sample it before. Again, we got a quarter of an ounce silver with 10% zinc lead. There's a little bit of gold in there, 0.5% copper. But these are in stockwork veins coming up in an intrusive. So that we did 3 holes there as well. And this is all coming to surface as well. So these are only 100-meter holes or so. And if you look at our last news release, which would have been 3 or 4 weeks ago, that actually has pictures of that stockwork veining, and it mentions all the holes and the depths that I already mentioned of what we've completed. So all that stuff is going to be coming out very shortly.
So it's interesting because the skarn outcrop, I mean, to get 0.71% copper in outcrop, which means it's at surface, is pretty high grade. I mean, that's impressive, but that's also characteristic of a skarn. What are the copper in soils at Sulphide City, Galley, and Pete's? Do they tell a story to where this porphyry intrusion might be?
Well, we don't do soils because there's no soil that exists really up there. I mean, it's
Ah,
it's
okay.
it's all rock at surface. I mean, you could do some sort of till sampling or something if you didn't know. You're obviously, if you can pick up the item that you want. If you want a bottle of water, your bottle of water is there. You're going to pick it up, right? You're not going to go looking for water in a bottle. So so I so we sample what we can see, and we don't. There's no
I
need for
see.
doing any soil or bleg sampling or anything like that up there.
Okay, but the pattern that you're seeing at surface, and in terms of the holes that you've drilled to date, is pointing you at depth at Sulphide City. Is that correct?
That's correct. That vicinity, right? Somewhere in that area. Is it a kilometer to the east, a kilometer to the west? Is it 2 kilometers down? I mean, we don't know exactly that, but everything that we've plotted up is geochemically zoned. Again, silver being the furthest away, molybdenum, copper being closer in. With all the work we've completed and this IP survey and the magnetic survey, everything is driving us to a perceived hub or center of a tire where everything is kind of spoking out from at the Sulphide City area. Now, there's been a lot of metamorphism that's happened in this area as well. So that separates it from some of these Mexican deposits where a lot of them are mainly undeformed. So whenever you get post-mineral faulting, it in a way, it can make it more difficult to track things because you can have disconnects. Post-mineral faulting would be an event that happened after the mineralization was in place. We believe that there's been at least 4 different mineralizing events up there. So the more mineralization events, the higher your metals budget. That's what you want to see. Complexity in a geological sense is a good thing. It just makes things more complicated. It's a more complicated puzzle, but the reward is much higher. And we wouldn't be up where we are without knowing what this reward could potentially be. And it's, catastrophic in our team's view. So.
Yeah, it's absolutely a massive opportunity, and you've got multiple porphyry targets at depth. Um, and I think you probably even have more that you don't even know about because it's such a large property. You know, when people see the core asset share price and they see it drop from 14 or 15 cents during the summer to whatever 5 or 6 cents, they might assume, well, the drill program, you know, probably didn't go well. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, you're an investor. I'm an investor in different deals, you know, and the psychology of the markets can overrule your mind sometimes. And one thing can happen, and you can think that that means exactly what it means, or you can think it means something different. And I know that from the calls I get. I will get someone call me early in the morning that's happy that they picked it up and it's up a couple of pennies, and then I get someone who calls me that it might be down on them, right? So everybody's going through different emotions at different times. And I think that that is one of the things that happens, right? If there's a bit of silence, maybe for a bit, if a company is pumping out news every 2 weeks, no matter what, and then all of a sudden they don't for a month, it's like there's not necessarily anything wrong, but people just get used to that, I guess, consistency, and then they just always think the worst. I assume, right? That's how it works, and we see that happening time and time again. And you know, some of these results and news releases are hard to decipher for a just like a regular everyday person who's trying to make a couple dollars. So I can see why, you know, people might think that things are not going well just because the share price goes down. But you know, as I've said, you know, in another interview there a couple of weeks ago, right? Like, we don't make revenue or anything. Like, there's nothing quantitative that we can show people besides our numbers and our widths, you know, of our drill core, until you get to a resource phase. But you know, we don't make any money, so you can't. All of these decisions to you know, buy and sell are definitely based on speculation, and that's the junior mining market.
So you would not say it was a failure then?
I would not say it was a failure whatsoever. No, it definitely was not a failure. When you get 11.8 meters of massive sulfide, again, just naming one of the intercepts, that's far from a failure. I mean, that might be one of the better drill intercepts I've ever gotten in my life. You know, we don't it's a very good, healthy, mineralized rock, and we've sampled that area many times before. Channel sampled it. You know, the widths are there, the mineralogy is there, and we know the grades at surface. So I mean, it should be a pretty good intercept.
Okay. So Nick, I think, you know, we should leave it there. I think that was a good update, and we'll definitely do a deeper dive, and maybe I'll have you spin around some of the, you know, models and the graphics in 3D in a future conversation once you have the results out that you'd like to talk about. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thanks very much.